The sky is falling again. The price of gold fell more than it had on any other day since 2013. I mean, it's not that small, is it? So, gold fell about 8% from its last high point, and silver fell almost 12%. Those are some big losses. If you only look at those numbers, you might think that the run is over. We can only find these kinds of one-day drops going back to 2013. Take a short break, though in this case, a merger would make the most sense. As I've said in each of my last 4 videos, I thought there would be a setback. Even though the main point has always been that there is still a lot of climbing to do. It doesn't look like the market is going to $5,000 or $70 when it drops 8% in a day and 12% in a day. Traders who are paying attention say that the market has recently reached its peak. It looks like you're part of that sell-off, and some of us who weren't may be wondering if we were wrong. Before we get into that, I just wanted to say thanks to Summit Metals, my channel's sponsor. They can help you buy or sell gold or silver. They will take care of your needs on both sides of the deal. So, let's look at things from a different angle for a moment. The price of gold went down by 12%, which I hadn't even had time to talk about in a video yet. Gold is still up 55% after just over $4,000. This is a crazy run for an asset that doesn't move like this. In the first month of 2025, an ounce of gold cost $2,624. Both of those predictions, that we would see improvements of 40% halfway through the year and 50% at the end of last year, were very hopeful, and we're still way ahead of them. So, before we talk about the sales failures, I think we need to acknowledge how extreme the current move is. I see that the stories about gold and silver moving around are starting to blend together. Everything we hear points to prices going through the roof. And since they are, every story makes sense. You probably know the stories I'm talking about, like the "Let the wild rumpus begin" stories, or the stories about global currency resets. It's like a feedback loop, where the price action proves the tail right, no matter how crazy it gets. The two metals behave differently, so I'll talk about gold more than silver again. In most cases, that's 90% fantasy and 10% fact. The problem is that the price explosion makes it all seem real, but it hides the most important part, why it's happening in the first place. I mention this because some of the reasons given for the recent rise in the price of gold and silver don't make much sense, justify profits that are even bigger than the crazy growth. Everything that happens next has to fit with the story you bought into. And we're already starting to feel like we need more. If the price keeps going up, the story makes sense. But if the price goes down, it doesn't make sense. Come on, this monetary policy isn't a mystery. It's clearly changing prices. The same demand and debt that have been driving up gold and silver prices this year. It seems pretty clear that things got worse when tensions between the US and China eased. The dollar has been falling for months, and central banks, especially in Asia, are buying record amounts of gold. Traders are locking in profits after a rough month with the technical sell-off, taking advantage of a market that has probably been overbought for weeks. Things that happen over and over again. But in the end, it was the biggest drop in a single day in almost 10 years. Volatility is back, and the long-term pattern hasn't changed. So, at this very moment, only the traders who are there will care about whether you should have sold or not. More importantly, if you weren't buying into the myths about a global financial collapse and a complete reset, the question is whether we should have bought at $4,300. You obviously didn't spend $4,300 or more on one thing that costs more than the current spot price. You shouldn't be upset about that kind of thing happening now. Some people here have called me conservative, probably because they believe in the dramatic stories. But people who have known me for a while know how I work. I just try to find the real reasons for the current movements. I still think my predictions for 2020 are correct. Back then, most people thought that gold and silver were just going through a meteoric rise, but that wasn't the case. That's why my price predictions for 2020-2024 were so close. Some people called my point of view conservative at the time, but I kept my focus on the root problems. Not the noise though, and that hasn't changed since last year. I'll admit that I have realistic expectations. I thought there would be a 40% increase at first, but new information has made me rethink my expectations, so I've been changing my original plan. But it seems that everything I thought would happen has happened much faster than I thought it would, which has brought us to where we are now. We had to pay more than $43.50 and then give back $300 just to get to the level that I thought was fair at this point in the cycle. It's a long way to get there, but it's about where I thought we'd be by the end of the year, even after an 8% drop. That doesn't mean I was right all along. I'm still not sure if it means the price has finally caught up with reality, or if I didn't take the October volatility into account enough. It's hard for me to think of the current prices as a big drop, especially since we're up 55% this year. Most people will probably notice this drop and expect more drops, no matter what news they are watching. That's the part where you need to be careful, because when prices drop, people don't buy. And a year later, when gold prices are much higher, they'll wish they had. They're thinking that I could sell gold for $4,000 an ounce again. I'm not here to tell you when to buy or when to hold. But if you're worried about missing a chance to sell, you should know that it's usually just a matter of being patient. Also, if you're not buying because you think the trend will keep going down, remember that you're not the only one who feels this way. However, the data does not support this view right now. The general trend is still up, but short-term problems like the US government shutdown and the US-China trade talks are affecting the direction. You need to watch all of the meetings between Russia and Ukraine. The price has gone down for 2 days in a row after going up the most since 1979, but it won't keep going down forever. If you're worried about this drop in price, I just want to remind you that pullbacks are a normal part of every real rally and that gold's movement has never been straight. The fundamentals are still the same, and most of what's going on right now is just noise. What matters is if you let that get in the way of your plan. People who stay realistic and look for the real reasons will have a much better chance of success. Let's stop there. Please tell us what you think. Do you think the drop is a good buy? Are there going to be more dips? Please leave a comment and let us know. If you like this, please click the like button to show your thanks. If you want to know more about this issue and stay up to date, make sure you're subscribed and have alerts turned on. Thanks again for listening. Thank you very much for your time. Stay healthy.